Shalom and good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcasting to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, Israel's President Reuven Rivlin calls for restraint in the wake of a new row between Israel and Turkey over the violent events that occurred on Monday along the border of the Gaza Strip. Palestinian Foreign Minister Riyad and Maliki urges Arab states during an emergency meeting of the Arab League to recall their ambassadors in Washington for consultations in a show of protest for the American relocation of its embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. French President Emmanuel Macron underscores Europe's desire to preserve the benefits of the multinational nuclear deal with Iran, yet emphasized that Paris will not become an ally of Tehran against Washington. Israel's President Reuven Rivlin called for restraint in the wake of a row between Turkey and Israel over the violent events that occurred along the border of the Gaza Strip. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has been one of the most vocal critics of Israel's resolve in thwarting attempts by Palestinian residents of Gaza to infiltrate the state of Israel, calling the high death toll of 62 Palestinians a genocide, while labeling Israel a terrorist state. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu responded to those comments, stressing that Erdogan was in no position to preach morality to the state of Israel because of his support to the Islamist Hamas organization, an internationally recognized terror group that vocally aspires to annihilate the Jewish state. The exchange of accusations and rhetoric between the two leaders has led to a decision by Ankara and Jerusalem to expel each other's senior diplomats. In an effort to alleviate the tension between the two countries, however, President Reuven Rivlin, who visited an Israeli kibbutz near the Gaza Strip, stressed the need to refrain from unhelpful dialogue that both sides will regret later.
I really think that we better, both sides, refer from this dialogue, because for sure we will really regret about what we are saying. President Erdogan has said that also many times, not only to the Prime Minister Netanyahu, also to President Peres. Always he finds a way in order to really criticize Israel and blame Israel when he knows very well that what we have to do and what we are doing is protecting our borders from anyone who would like to affect the very existence of Israel.
Even though Hamas admitted that a vast majority of the Palestinians who were killed along the Gaza Strip's border fence with Israel were members of its Islamist group, the international community continues to condemn Israel for its defensive measures. During a press conference after a summit of European Union leaders in Western Balkan countries, French President Emmanuel Macron condemned what he termed as the heinous acts committed by Israel against Palestinian protesters along the Gaza Strip's border fence with Israel, yet emphasized the need for Palestinian protests to maintain a peaceful nature. President Macron did not sway, however, from condemning Hamas as well as other Islamist groups in the Palestinian enclave that have endangered Israel's security, emphasizing his country's efforts to remain balanced to refrain from tolerating either side's violent actions.
Je suis très clair. La France a en effet condamné ces actes odieux et ces victimes civiles qui ont été commis en particulier sur la journée de lundi, mais qui ont des réalités encore dans les dernières heures. De la même façon que la France a appelé à des manifestations pacifiques quand il devait y en avoir et a condamné avec beaucoup de fermeté tous les propos tenus par le Hamas et l'ensemble des mouvements qui ont mis en danger la sécurité d'Israël. C'est cet équilibre que nous tenons depuis le début. Et donc il n'y a aucune complaisance à l'égard de qui que ce soit, mais un attachement profond en effet au respect des vies humaines et de la sécurité d'Israël.
On the matter of the nuclear agreement with Iran, President Macron took the opportunity to underscore Europe's desire to preserve the benefits of the multinational nuclear deal. The French president emphasized the responsibility of European leaderships to protect the legitimate interests of their companies that seek to benefit from the 2015 agreement.
Nous avons collectivement confirmé la volonté européenne de préserver les bénéfices de l'accord, y compris pour l'Iran, signé en juillet 2015, et de protéger les intérêts légitimes de nos entreprises.
The French leader emphasized, however, that the economic interests were not the top priority of the agreement, as the deal's main objective aims to ensure stability across the Middle East. Macron further underlined that Paris will not become an ally of Tehran against Washington, an assumption of some that President Macron termed an absolute mistake.
Moi, je considère que notre rôle, c'est d'assurer la stabilité et la paix dans cette région. Donc notre intérêt premier n'est pas un intérêt commercial ou d'entreprise, il n'est pas de prendre parti pour tel ou tel camp dans la région, il est d'assurer la stabilité. On ne va pas non plus devenir les alliés de l'Iran contre les États-Unis d'Amérique. Parfois, quand je lis les commentaires ou que j'entends les choses, on pourrait donner le sentiment que c'est ce qu'il faudrait faire. C'est une erreur absolue.
Iran's ongoing efforts, however, to preserve the nuclear deal that alleviated years of crippling sanctions against its economy focuses primarily on demands to maintain the commercial benefits of the deal.
But there are very clear economic benefits that have been specified in the JCPOA that Iranian people have to receive in order for the balance that was created in the JCPOA and carefully negotiated in the JCPOA to remain. And we will have to see whether our remaining participants in the JCPOA can deliver those benefits to Iran.
While the determination by European states to preserve the multinational deal with Iran is adamant, their aspiration to do so is challenged by Washington's decision to reimpose crippling international sanctions on Tehran, a move that will dissuade major European corporations to follow through on business with Iran at the expense of the United States. That said, after admitting that the EU's means to keep the deal alive were limited, European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker announced, following meetings with EU member states' leaders, that Europe will take measures to protect companies from US sanctions so long as Tehran remains committed to the constraints of the nuclear deal.
As to the Iran nuclear deal, we agreed unanimously that the EU will stay in the agreement as long as Iran remains fully committed to it.
Now to the Egyptian capital, Cairo, where Palestinian Foreign Minister Riyad al-Maliki urged Arab states during an emergency meeting of the Arab League to recall their ambassador in Washington for consultations in a show of protest for the American relocation of its embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Even though Arab states voiced solidarity with the Palestinians and their condemnation of Israel's claim to Jerusalem while rejecting Washington's opening of an embassy in the city, they clearly seem to brush off the Palestinian demand for action against the United States. That said, Arab League's Secretary General vowed to take action through international bodies against Israel and its connection to Jerusalem. Meanwhile, in the Turkish city of Istanbul, Turkey's foreign minister, in a meeting of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, stressed the importance for Muslim countries to unite in preventing countries from following in the footsteps of the United States, as was the case with Guatemala, emphasizing the importance of maintaining the Muslim nature of the ancient city.
Zirve sonunda kabul edeceğimiz bildiride Filistin davasının ve Kudüs-ü Şerif'in ümmetimiz için merkezi konumunu bir kez daha vurgulamış olacağız. Bu kutsal şehrin tarihi statüsünün değiştirilmesine izin vermeyeceğimizi hep birlikte haykıracağız. Bu doğrultuda birlik olmalı ve başka ülkelerin ABD örneğini takip etmelerini engellemeliyiz.
The voiced threats by Muslim countries against anyone thinking to relocate their embassies in Israel to Jerusalem, however, have had little effect thus far, with Paraguay's government spokesman announcing President Horacio Cortez's departure for Israel on Saturday, ahead of his country's scheduled embassy inauguration in Jerusalem on Tuesday next week. Thank you for watching us. Praying for the peace of Israel and the peace of Jerusalem. I'd like to wish you, from myself and the team here in Jerusalem, a Chag Shavuot Sameach. Have a Shabbat Shalom. I'm Jonathan Hassan, and we will see you again on Monday at the same time.